Yip Sang is my great-grandfather on my father's side. This is Yip Q Shek. He was the 9th son of Yip Sang, and he was my grandfather. And he is standing in front of the front door of Wing Sang at 51 East Pender. My father was literally born on the top floor because he was the 4th wife, and the 4th wife's family was the top floor. Yeah, it was 6 stories, and then the top 3 floors were wife 2, 3, and 4's family. And since I come from the 4th wife, we were at the very top floor. Lots of stairs. I have so much passion for genealogy because it is about the story. One of my huge passions is uncovering the truth behind those stories and fleshing them out into real living human beings so we can appreciate all that they went through to make us Canadians. In some ways, I've always known about Yip Sang. As this man, he was important in the family, but my research shows that he was of far more importance than I had ever guessed. And one of the key stories that comes up for me where I first thought, this is a man of real importance, was after the 1907 Chinatown riots. And so you have to imagine there had been a mob coming through Chinatown, and they had smashed all of the windows and terrified Chinese and the Japanese who had fought back. And after that, the immigration commissioner had been sent to BC to interview the residents and the businessmen. And he liked asking Yip Sang questions about the riots, and it turned into kind of inquiry, not into restitution, which was what the idea was, but rather about immigration. And it was those questions and that fencing between Yip Sang and the immigration commissioner, because the immigration commissioner was William Lyon Mackenzie King, who later became the Prime Minister of Canada during World War II. Why would Chinese businessmen develop an association like this? And it's because there was a lack of infrastructure for Chinese Canadians. And so when you have a lack of social welfare, immigrants come into the country, they don't speak the language, they don't have a place to live, they don't have jobs, they just need to get over the doorstep. And the CBA did that and more. For example, it also argued for burials, birth, life, and death. It encompassed every part of life in this community. Wing Sang, it's probably important to explain that it was a complex. It was a warehouse, a China-style compound, a home, a business, also the seat of a number of Chinese associations. And so it was a real nexus of different interactions and connections and people. Wing Sang wrote to the government and said, look, we have so many Chinese working in the area, and they live from mail, right? Just remittance letters and news from home. And it's really hard for them to get off work and then like shoot out to the post office before it closes. So can we just have a post office in Chinatown? And Canada Post was like, no. Based on work such as Yip and his family and his legacy. So it's not just, a building, but an enduring mode of thought where a community comes together and does what's right. When I think about Yip and his legacy, I think about family, and I think about the connectivity, and what do Chinese people want? They want to have children to continue the legacy. And you need to have someone like Yip Sang to be able to provide the money, because it is not cheap, to send people to school, to have the first Chinese Canadian lawyer, to have the first Chinese Canadian doctor, to house Nellie Yip Gong, who was the midwife and lived at Wing Sang, and soccer stars, people to uplift the community. Queenie Yip was a son of Yip. And so you have all of these people coming together to build and continue the Yip's legacy. The family is at once incredibly proud and has this big burden. Year over year, just trying to make the taxes, just trying to pay the bills, and keep the roof from falling in. And they lasted another 60 years, actually, from that enormous tax bill. And I feel like they hung on, and more power to them for hanging on. And also, I mean, the building is a physical representation of hope. Yip Sang's hope for the future, his declaration of an investment in Canada, because he could have built other places. And the Yips, I think, wanted to hold on to that as long as they could. And then they were afraid when they sold it, what would happen to it? Would the developer take it down, or would it, well, now we know what happened.
This is the laneway right there.